Meteorologist Matt Makens here. It's time for the AgNow weather report. Let's look at the next week in terms of total precip on the way. Pacific Northwest, New England states, Appalachians have a fair amount of water on the way, mostly in the form of rain. Upper Midwest into the northern Corn Belt, hit and miss pockets of some lighter rain. And then you look New Mexico into Texas, out into the Gulf states. And yes, that's not a lot of water, but consider West Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado for the time of year to get around a quarter, perhaps a half inch. Again, considering the time of year, that's a decent amount of water. But a lot of the central and southern plains are dry. And many of us have wheat in the ground. We fought very warm ground temperatures to plant. Then we had that teaser of rainfall in September. So what's happened by shutting that off? We're starting to worry about it. We're still trucking in water to help with the cattle. We're trying to irrigate, supplemental irrigation. But in our mind, we're in El Nino, so where is the water? Let's talk about the short-term and then the long-term weather pattern in this AgNow weather report. So overall, the drought has increased for the southern states throughout the course of the summer and the fall. We know that. It has also increased in the Corn Belt. Now this area is kind of synonymous. It kind of comes with El Nino to see the drought shift from the south up to the north. Now we need to recover this territory in the south from the drought. But how can we do that? How quickly can we do it? It is not quick. We have to pump the brakes a bit. El Nino, once it's established, it may still take time for you to get the water. And I'll have a breakdown of the timing in just a moment. What are the threats coming through for the next week or so? Well, as far as rainfall, not that it's a threat, but to get at least 1 inch for this time of the year may lead to some ponding of the water. It's great for soil moistures, but maybe too much for the Corn Belt. So we're looking at some higher probabilities in the corn. So anybody that's still harvesting corn may have to run into some rain issues next week. But for Oklahoma down through Texas, that's going to be favorable. We at least have some odds of getting 1 inch of water, which for the wheat, pastures, stock water, those are great. That's a great probability to see. Now, I hope those chances go up as we get closer, but that'll be coming with a system next week. What about snowfall? Well, for the mountains, kind of limited, right around 3 or so inches. Why do I point out snowfall? We need the snow here for the surface water supply, that runoff for our irrigation needs next year, the start of next growing season. We'll have tabs on the snowfall totals throughout the course of this winter here on the AgNow weather reports. What about freezing? Well, not much of an issue for Oklahoma or Texas, but for Kansas, Nebraska, any wheat in the ground that's emerged, there's going to be a freeze on the way for next week. And it starts kind of right around the Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, all those state lines together and moves up to the north. Not much of a threat for the central or southern plains just yet, however. So again, with the drought, we're seeing it increase here. There's a little bit of moisture on the way over the next 10 days. It's not going to offset the drought, but at least it will help. And for the central and southern plains, from the precip maps, the odds are just not favorable to have an immediate recovery, although we do have some water on the way over the next 10 days as shown. So how do we overcome this long-term drought across the south? Well, with El Nino, its impact is not immediate and it doesn't go continuously. So here's kind of a general sense of when El Nino's impact is greatest. Its greatest dry impact, its greatest drought-producing impact is November through March in the Pacific Northwest and December through March into the sections of the Corn Belt and the Great Lakes. When is it likely to bring in the water? Well, wetter than normal, usually from November through April for the southeast and January through April for the southwest. So you can kind of see how that precip will migrate across the southern states. So it's not an immediate impact. El Nino's largest impact for the wheat areas is in the midwinter through early spring. That's when we have our biggest impact. And what will that impact look like this year? In a very general, basic sense, precipitation from November to April will favor sections of the southern plains into the central plains with a surplus of water. I do worry about the magnitude of the drought areas and how far south they come. Whether or not they reach some of the wheat areas of eastern Oklahoma or eastern Texas remains to be seen. But right now, based on the strength of this El Nino, the timing of it, the magnitude, all of those things together, this is kind of the general sense of the probabilities for you getting a surplus of water as we go throughout the winter. That's this week's AgNow weather report. Of course, we'll have more updates on this as we go throughout the seasons ahead, but we'll also have more of those looks at the freezing potential, the moisture potential, and the snow potential in next week's report.